November 7th, 2:42 in the afternoon. It has been, I think, over a week since the last video or vlog that I've done. A couple reasons for that. Number one, I've been sick since last Thursday. Today's Friday, so I've been sick and fighting a sickness for over a week now. So there were a couple days there where like my throat was hurting so bad, and I was so congested that I just could not find it within me to sit there and talk on my way home. Another reason is the way that the GoPro is positioned in my car. The back of it faces my window, and because it is so hot here, it's been like in the 90s to 100s for the past few weeks. The sun was hitting the back of the GoPro, causing it to overheat, and so then like I would get 5 or 6 minutes into talking and it would shut down, and at that point I just gave up. Plus I was sick, so just not a good combination for that whole situation. You may be thinking, well, it's only 2:40 something, why are you already leaving work? I am on my way to a doctor's appointment for something that was completely unrelated to me being sick, but now that I'm sick, I'm also going for the sickness that I have and hopefully get on an antibiotic so that I can get better. If you're a teacher, you know that, for me at least, I get sick pretty often. I'm honestly surprised that I was not sick before now. Last week was a holiday weekend, so it was Labor Day weekend, so we were off on Monday, and then I took a sick day on Tuesday. So I was actually only at work this week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And so I'm surprised that I have not acquired some sickness before now. Usually within that first week, I'm pretty sick. So I get sick pretty often. Depending on how bad I am, I'll take a sick day here and there. Sometimes I just need a mental health day. If you're a teacher, you know all about needing a mental health day for yourself. So sometimes I take sick days for that as well. Last week, one of the things that I had started to talk about before the camera had shut down, I believe it was last Friday, I was driving home and talking about this. I have a student in one of my classes who consistently is having behavior issues. Not only just a disruption to himself and a distraction to himself, but he's also a distraction to other students that sit around him. And that's my class that is probably the rowdiest of all the classes that I have. I think for a combination of reasons. One, it's the end of the day, they're anxious to get home, they're ready to go, they have been sitting in a seat and learning for 7 hours at that point. I'm ready to go home, so my patience is probably slightly less than it would normally be. And so that bunch is my rowdiest one. And so I already kind of have had some behavior issues in that class kind of throughout the weeks. For the most part, though, the ones that displayed some of the bigger behavior issues that first week or week and a half, I have them under control now. So it is a much better environment than it was, but I still have 1 or 2 boys in there that like to distract themselves, distract others, and kind of, I think they just want to show off. It's a 7th grade class, and so at that point they're kind of finding themselves, trying to fit in. So I have this one specific kid who I have struggled with pretty much from day one, and so I have made, I think, 5 or 6 phone calls home for him at this point. The first time I called home, I did talk to Mom, kind of had a discussion with her. She said she would talk to him, and he came in the next day, I think, with kind of the same attitude, same behavior, no real change in behavior for him. And so, like I said, I'd called a few more times, not been able to reach mom or dad, left a few voice messages. And so last Friday, it was to the point where, and I was sick also, so my patience was even less. It was to the point where it was such a disruption and a distraction to a couple other students who kind of feed into that behavior that I stopped class and went ahead and called mom. And on Fridays, I try to make those a little bit more of a laxed day. The kids are tired at that point. I get it. I can empathize with them. And so I do a lot of like data collection type of stuff on Friday. Typically, we have some sort of quiz or exit slip in each class that I have, depending on what material we went over that week. And then because I do RTI, I also have to progress monitor. So I have computer programs that I have them jump on and complete certain probes so I can collect that data and see whether or not they're making progress. So Fridays is a pretty laxed day. And so when I called mom, the class had already finished their quiz for the day, and they were all on computers or technology and kind of completing the things that I had set out for them to do. So it wasn't like I actually stopped instruction, although I have done that before and have no issues doing that, because a lot of the time that is very effective, because parent is usually very angry at that point in time if they know child has disrupted so much that I need to stop class and call. And the child is usually pretty embarrassed that they have to jump on the phone with mom while their other, 25 to 30 peers are staring at them. So sometimes it's a little bit embarrassing for them. A highly effective strategy that may or may not be your thing. You may or may not agree with that. That is a strategy that I use. So stopped class, called mom, and the majority of the time when I talk to parents, I get an appropriate response. This was not one of those times. It has happened before. Specific district that I taught in, I hardly ever got the appropriate response when I made a phone call home. This is the first time it's happened at this new district that I'm in. But mom pretty much said to me, you're the only one that he has an issue with, so you're the problem. In so many words, she did not say it exactly like that, but that was the gist of what she was saying. She told me I was the only teacher that was having problems with him. I'm the only one that has called her this year. He is doing very well in all of his other classes. And see, mom doesn't know, like, I can look back on all of their documentation, and I can see if other teachers have called in the past. I can see if they have any discipline referrals and what those referrals were for, and so on and so forth. So when I have to make that first phone call home, I'm automatically looking through all of the information that I can, so I can see kind of what is this child really like on a day-to-day basis. So this is a child that has been in a lot of trouble in the past. Had a lot of teachers last year call with the same concerns as I'm calling for. And so, but mom pretty much told me anyway that, I'm the problem. It must be a personality issue between him and I, and that he's not going to change. That's what she told me. She said, yep, I understand that these are kind of the issues that he has. In so many words, she told me she was tired of me calling her, and that he wasn't going to change. So that's a great attitude to have, and I would have loved to tell her that, but a lot of the time I have to bite my tongue in these scenarios when I talk to parents that are not receptive and not supportive. I know that I have to remain professional, and a lot of the times that's extremely hard. These are one of those situations where mom was kind of putting everything back on me, and a lot of the time I take that personally, because then I think to myself, well, why is it that I cannot get through to this specific child? What is it that I'm doing wrong that he's not willing to do what he needs to do in my class? And so I have to kind of remind myself to not take everything to heart and take it personally. And a lot of the times that's very hard to do. So this is one of those situations where I kind of did overanalyze and think for a couple of days, like, what is it that I need to be doing to kind of fix the issue? Because obviously, you know, if I'm the only one calling home, then I must be the only one having issues. And sometimes that's the case, sometimes it's not. Sometimes teachers, the other teachers, like, they just don't want to deal with all the documentation that comes along with calling home. Therefore, they just deal with the behavior in the class. I'm not one of those teachers. So that was kind of Mom's response. She did tell me that he has ADHD, which I completely understand. I was a special ed teacher in the past, so I'm pretty receptive to that situation. I also have a sibling that has ADHD, and so I'm very aware of what kind of comes along with that. But he has ADHD, and Mom is just not willing to medicate him. I believe the way that she talked, he was medicated in the past, but she just doesn't want to do that this year. That's a personal decision. Nothing I can do about that. Legally, I cannot tell any parent or guardian whether or not their child should be medicated. In certain circumstances, I do believe that it would be a benefit for the child to have that medication and kind of be able to function normally in the classroom. If they are jumping out of their skin constantly, it's very, very hard for their brain to concentrate. And he is probably one of the more severe situations. He's, you know, on the more severe side of the hyperactivity part of ADHD. So he is constantly moving, you know, doing this, his hands are going, you know, his feet are going, he's up, he's down, you know, he's across the table. So he's one of the more severe cases of ADHD. And probably does need to be medicated, but like I said, that's a personal decision. I can't tell anyone what to do on that, but pretty much overall, Mom said I just need to deal with him. So got off the phone with Mom and, you know, pulled the child up. He knew I was on the phone with Mom, and kind of just had a discussion with him. You know, what is it that I can do for you to make you focus more? What is it that I can do for you to make you be less of a distraction to other people? Because it really doesn't bother me if they're up and moving and their arms are moving, or they're kind of dancing in their seat, or they're standing in their seat. That kind of stuff doesn't really bother me, but when it starts to affect the kids that are around them, then I start to become a little bit concerned. And so I asked him, do you think it would be better if we moved your seat? You know what I mean? What is it that I can do? You need to think of, you know, like, we need to get together and think of what it is we can do. And so by the end of the conversation, he seemed very receptive. He told me that he did want to move his seat closer to mine. And because it was on a Friday, I said, I'm not going to do it today because we only had like 20 minutes of class left. But I said, I'll look at it this weekend, see what I can come up with, and I'll move you closer to where I am. So he was very happy about that. And then I also gave him the option, and depending on what the situation is, I may or may not do this for some children, but this specific student, I gave him the option to, when he feels like really like he can't get that energy out, and that he needs to, that he could go out in the hall and he could run laps up and down the hallway, or do push-ups outside of my door, or jumping jacks, things like that. And so he seemed like he liked that idea, and that he would definitely utilize that. And sometimes that's really all they need, is just something active to kind of get that energy out, especially if they are not going to be medicated. So today is the following Friday, so it's been a week since I've made that phone call home to Mom. I did call her back that day and just touch base with her. You know, kill him with kindness. That's usually the route that I go, just so I can stay on the safe side. So I did call her back, said, hey, I just wanted to touch base with you, talk to this, you know, I talked to your son. This is kind of what we talked about. He seemed receptive. These are the options and the strategies that I've given him to use. We're going to move his seat. you know, on and on. And so mom seemed happy about that, got off the phone with her, and so now it's a week later. And just to kind of give you an update on the situation, student has been great all week. Again, I was only there Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, so 3 days. Have not had any issues with distractions. So when I got there on Wednesday, he came straight up to me and he said, "Where are you going to move my seat?" So he was ready to kind of get that rolling, because I think some of the students he was sitting around, he was feeding into that behavior, and that was causing him to be a distraction. And so he was ready to move his seat, and so I flipped some stuff around, and now he's as close as he can be to where I am most of the time when I am in the classroom. And he has asked me multiple times now, you know, can I go out in the hallway? So he is using the strategies that I gave to him. One of the days he was like, "I can't sit in my seat. Can I sit on the floor?" So I allowed him to do that, closer to like the front of the room where the board is, you know. And at one point I look over and he's literally laying sprawled out on the floor, like, you know, upside down laying, but he's still doing his work. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm okay with, especially, you know, knowing that he has ADHD. I'm okay with that type of stuff as long as he's still working. So if I can redirect him and be like, "Hey, just make sure you're in," he's pretty good about that. So lots of movement for him, but overall using the strategies that I've given to him, and I can already tell my relationship with him is so much better than it was last week. And that's one of the things that him and I kind of talked about, like, we can't go on like this, you know. Obviously something is not working out between us, not sure what it is, because you're not having any other issues in any of your other classes. You know, we have to get past this now, so we're not still fighting this, you know, towards the end of the year. So I can already tell our relationship is a ton better than it was. I've been using lots of positive reinforcement with him. One of the things I use is Class Dojo. So, you know, if I give him a compliment, like I think yesterday, he got 100% on his flashback. And so he showed me, because he was very excited about that. And so when I acknowledged that, I gave him a dojo point, a positive dojo point. And I know a lot of them, they go home and they tell mom and dad or guardian or whoever has them, you know, "Oh, Miss Sanders gave me a compliment and I got a positive dojo point." So they love that kind of stuff. So with him, you know, I use positive reinforcement with all my kids, but like he's one where I almost overdo it probably. And some of them just need that, and that's enough for him to behave appropriately in class. So whatever it takes. So he's been doing great. I know the last vlog that I made, I was still having some behavior issues in some of the classes, but for the most part everyone is kind of settled. I'm still hammering down on those procedures. I'm not going to let up on that, and so I think because of that, I mean, for the most part, you know, all of my classes have been really great. You know, every once in a while, like, I'll get a chatty class, or like today a couple of my classes were a little antsy. But I can typically rein them in pretty quickly. And so overall, it's been fantastic this past week and a half since the last time that I've talked. So behavior seems to be under control. Just using Class Dojo, positive reinforcement. I'm giving lots of rewards, and just kind of hammering down on those procedures, and not letting up on those at all. That's just not something I'm willing to fight the whole year. And so if I get it under control now, my year will be much easier for me. Other than that, I think that's all I have for today. If anyone has any questions, any concerns, if you want to know certain strategies or anything, any of the programs that I talk about, like I mentioned Class Dojo, if you're unfamiliar with that, and you want to know more about it, I am absolutely happy to explain any of those things or answer any questions. Until next time, thanks.